Hello friends, I am Dr. Swati Singh, Head Department of English from S.V.K.T College, Devlali Camp. Welcome to my online lecture series. Till now in my online lecture series, we have covered how to approach literature, what is a poem, difference between the language of poetry and language of prose, and different types of poem. So these are the all things we have covered in this paper. Today, what all we are going to do? First of all, we will learn about 19th century and the poet Emily Dickinson. Next, we will see background and introduction of the poem, Have You Got a Brook in Your Little Heart? We will read the text. We will understand the summary or the central idea of the poem. We will try to find out the meaning of the words used in the poem, and then we will analyze the poem. What will be our learning objectives? So, in this session, first we will understand what is a lyric or lyric poetry, lyrical poetry. Second, Emily Dickinson as a 19th century American poet. Background of the poem, where the title is Have You Got a Brook in Your Little Heart? And last, we will analyze the poem to get the proper essence of this poem. Now let's start our session with the definition, what is a lyric? Lyric word is used in late English literature. It was used from the word lyre. Lyre was a musical instrument which used to be played with a small song in the evening, and the word lyric comes from the word lyre. It is a poem where a private expression of emotion by an individual speaker. Lyrical poetry is highly musical. I have already told from where this word came. So it is highly musical because it used to be sung with the instrument lyre. It can feature poetic devices like rhyme and meter. Some scholars categorize lyrical poetry in three subtypes: lyric of vision, lyric of thought, and lyric of emotions. However, this classification is not widely agreed upon. Have You Got a Brook in Your Little Heart is all about. Like this poem which we are going to do today, we have to understand this poem is about what. So first of all, the poet Emily Dickinson, she writes this poem about human mind or the soul or the spirit which we all have in our life but we fail to recognize. Dickinson described it as an unseen brook that flows within our heart. So time and again we will see this word brook. Later on we will understand the meaning. So I hope you all know the meaning of brook. Brook is a small river. So like a river is continuous flowing, same way the poet feels that there is a stream, there is a river in everybody's life that gives a purpose to our life. But most of the time, we people, we forget to notice it. We people forget to realize it. This brook supplies energy to our spirit constantly until it gets dry in scorching heat of life. What is scorching heat of life? Scorching heat of life is the struggle, the suffering, the hard work we do. So sometimes this stream, this brook, it gets dried. Hence, the poet draws our attention to the change happening inside us or internally. Let's see the form and structure of the poem. I have already told that this is in a form of lyric, a small poem of 16 lines full of music, full of rhyme. But however, if we actually see this poem in particular, it has 4 quatrains. Quatrains means a stanza of 4 lines. So overall this has 4 quatrains, means 16th line, and every quatrain carries 4 lines each. Dickinson uses the ballad rhyme scheme, that is ABCB, and this particular rhyme scheme is used in ballad. Though this poem seems to be a lyric, a short poem full of music, but it has rhyming scheme which matches the scheme of a ballad. It means the second and fourth line rhymes together. For example, in the first quatrain, the second line uses blow, which rhymes with the snow. Same way in the last stanza, lie and dry rhymes, means first, second and the fourth line we can see it's always rhyming with each other. Concerning the meter of the poem, it also imitates the ballad meter, means the structure which is followed in the form of ballad, that is used in this poem. That is alternate use of iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. Now let's see its historical context. Like Dickinson has written many poems, but this poem appears in Dickinson's complete poems, that is a collection. It was published in 1924. From the timeline of the poet's work, it can be inferred that the poem was produced either in 1861 or between 1861 to 65. According to scholars, Dickinson's fully developed her themes of life and mortality after 1861. It means the Dickinson's poetry got mature in around 1861 to 65. Hence, this poem, which deals with the theme of soul, mind, maturity, spirit, it might have been written during this period. In this poem, Dickinson's ideas revolve around life and spirituality. That is maturity of life, that is understanding about the life, that is growing and growth of life. She describes the mind and soul as a brook. Brook, I told, it's a small river that flows silently within our heart. We need to take care of it, otherwise it will go dry. Like we nurture everything in our life, and if we neglect any aspect of life, it becomes dry, mundane. Same way we have to nurture this spirit. Coming to the title of this poem. If we read this title carefully, it's a very simple title. Have you got a brook in your little heart? The title itself is very interesting, which arises many thoughts in our mind. Like she is talking about a brook, but that brook flows in our heart. So first question comes, what does the brook stand for? Is it a symbol of life or reference to the soul? To know this answer, one has to focus on the uses of specific terms used in the poem, because it is on the individual how you find the meaning of this word brook in this poem. It can be a reference to either life or the soul residing in our hearts. Indeed, it is like a little brook that remains hidden until one discover and understand its importance. Means it is already existing. Only thing we have to realize its importance and existence in our life. Hence, in the last stanza, the poet urges readers to be aware of the brook of life, or it would go dry in some burning noon. And that burning is the struggle of life, because life is a combination of good and bad. Suppose we take example of Lata Mangeshkar, or we take example of Amitabh Bachchan, or we take example of our professor. Teaching can be a job of a professor. Singing can be job of a Lata Mangeshkar. Acting can be job of Amitabh Bachchan. But if throughout their life they keep on devoting their time to this thing, then actually they won't live life with a purpose, because this is one aspect of life: acting, singing, teaching. But other than this, every individual has got some spirit which one has to realize, and that is the message in this poem giving to all the readers. Now let's see the summary, or let's summarize, or let's get some central idea of this poem. Have you got a brook in your little heart begins with the description of the brook that mildly bubbles by. Bashful flowers blow near it. Means there is a brook and there are flowers which blows near it. So we have to feel the beauty of these flowers, and we have to keep in our mind that how to keep these flowers fresh. And blushing birds come down to drink its water. And there are birds also who comes down to drink the water from this brook. No one knows its location, so it flows undisturbed. Even that individual in whose heart it flows, he doesn't know the source, or he doesn't know its location. Hence, this keep on flowing undisturbed. Yet a little draught of life is daily drunk by the speaker without anybody's attention. Now you see the contrast. One side is brook and one side is drought. Drought is dryness, drought is sukha. So life is a combination of good and bad. But whether time is good or bad, this stream, this brook keeps on flowing, and the drought of our life keeps drinking, keeps taking inspiration from this brook unintentionally. In the last two stanzas, Dickinson describes the impact of the spring and autumn in this brook. How when happiness comes, individual becomes very happy. And when autumn comes, everywhere we feel the dryness, the droopiness, the pain, then the suffering. So this poem symbolizes both the seasons in our life. So same way you can see on this presentation, I have put a tree which is green, which is slightly dull, which is orange, which is again dull orange. So these can be seen as the different seasons in our life, or different moods in our life. During spring, this brook, it overflows, while in August, the meadows near it become dry, because after spring, it is the autumn which follows this stream. and then we see dryness around it. So the speaker wants listeners to take notice of it, to take care of this brook, lest it would go dry. Now, after the central idea, after the analysis of the title, let's do line by line analysis and explanation. On your screen, there are 4 starting lines or one first quatrain of this poem. I'll read out. Have you got a brook in your little heart, where bashful flowers blow, where blushing birds go down to drink, and shadow trembles so? These 4 lines are the starting of this poem, and these are beautiful lines. Have you got a brook in your little heart? The poet is raising a question to the reader that have you noticed, or are you aware, or do you know there is a brook in your little heart where bashful flowers blow, bunch of flower keeps on smiling around it, where blushing birds go down to drink, blushing, shy. Those birds and beautiful flowers which are around this brook, they take water, they take happiness from this brook, and shadow trembles so. Shadow, the darkness of life, the pain of life. Though this brook is there, where flowers are there, birds are there, but at the same time shadow, pain, darkness is also there, but it keeps on trembling on it. This is the first quatrain of this poem. Now let's see the explanation. In the following lines, Dickinson's poetic persona refers to bashful flowers that blow near the brook. So the bashful flowers is a bunch of flowers. The phrase bashful flowers contains a personal metaphor. Here, the inanimate flowers are invested with the idea of being shy. Means these are lifeless creatures, these flowers, they are presented with the quality of living beings, as if they are being shy near the brook. The next line contains another personification. Personification where a non-living thing is presented as the living being. So first line, flowers were used as the living being. Second line, even those birds are presented as the human being, because they are shown to be shy and who tries to drink water from this brook. The presence of this secret brook. Why this secret? Because the person who's having this brook within himself doesn't know whether it is existing or not. One needs to take efforts to know from where to where this brook is flowing. Hence the word secret I have used in this. And in one heart makes the creature shy of the fact that they are entering in one's deeply personal space. No one has access to that spot except them. So the heart is the very personal area of someone. But if in that heart birds and flowers are entering, so the word shy is used because these things are very personal. In the last line of this first quatrain shows shadows are shadow word is used. So shadow is a symbol of ignorance, that people are ignorant about their own heart, own inner self. Hence this word shadow is used. Here the poet refers to spiritual ignorance, that we people, we are busy in day-to-day life and we forget, or we we are ignorant about the spirituality. The reflection of an object on water trembles due to the motion of the water, and that is the ignorance. The human mind is always in a state of restlessness. Only spiritual knowledge helps them to calm their mind and their soul, resulting in the stillness of the water. So here we come to the end of the first stanza, where three things are main. First is the flower, second is the bird, third is the shyness of these two creatures, and last is the word shadow, and shadow is the pain or the ignorance of the living beings. Now next quatrain, let's read it out. Second quatrain of this poem. And nobody knows, so still it flows, that any brook is there, and yet your little draught of life is daily drunken here. Second quatrain shows that even the person in whose heart it is flowing, he is ignorant. He is not aware that there is such a spirit, such consciousness which keeps on flowing. And that's why without any disturbance, it keeps on flowing. Yet your little draught of life is daily drunken there. The ignorance, the pain, the suffering is taking care by this consciousness, this soul, this brook in your life. Nobody knows the location of this metaphorical brook. It is always there, but we have to keep ourselves alert, or we have to notice this brook, because it is difficult to notice. The brook flows at its silent place. That's why no one can hear its sound and notice its presence. But mind it, it is flowing. We have to take some efforts to understand, because this is the spirit of life. Whatever you are doing, you should not neglect, you should not avoid, you should not forget the spirit of life, or soul of your life, or the essence of the life. In human, the soul similarly lies silently. Human being lives with his name, with his fame, with his profession, but that human being forgets his soul, because soul is silent. With deep self-knowledge, a person can realize its presence. So you need to take extra efforts to know your consciousness, to know something about your soul. If you are able to find your soul, if you are able to connect with your soul, then you will be able to uplift yourself from the misery of this physical world. In the following lines, the poet interestingly says that one drinks draught of life from the river daily without even knowing the fact. So there is a contrast. Brook is a river, and draught of life. Draught of life, ups and down of life. When your low phase comes, it is the brook which gives you strength, which gives you support, which helps you out of that darkness. Because life is a combination of good and bad, and if we are able to survive in our bad phase, it is only because of this consciousness which we are neglecting, or which we are not aware. It means that the soul is the source of inspiration for living. It is the purpose behind of life. It is the spirit which keeps us going. One daily takes recourse to the source unknowingly, unwillingly. Those little draughts of life act like a magical potion having the properties of healing and restoration. It heals our very minds and keep our body alive. So here comes the question, what keeps our very minds and body alive? It is that brook, it is that spirit, it is that consciousness, it is our soul which helps us to keep going in this mortal, in this physical life. Because in the end of the day, it is our consciousness, it is our inner strength, it is our spirit which will make us victorious. Because this life is temporary, so as this body. If something is true, it is the inner strength, inner consciousness, inner brook, which keeps on flowing without somebody noticing it. Let's see the third quatrain, third stanza of the poem. Then look out of the little brook in March, when the river overflows and the snow comes hurrying from the hills and the breezes often go. This third stanza is related to the seasons. Like in our life, we see winter, summer, spring, autumn. Same way, in human life, we see many different ups and downs. So this third stanza is about the month of March, or if we say like month of March is the season of spring, same way in our life, there comes the happiness, and the happiness or the good time when it comes, the level of our excitement, it goes up. So the comparison can be seen, and see line by line. Then look out for the little brook in March. March is the spring season, and in other way, the happy period of your life, where the rivers overflows. Rivers are overflowing. Water is coming in excess. Happiness is coming in excess. Because how it is coming in excess? The snows come hurrying from the hills. कि स्प्रिंग में हीट बढ़ गई है, जो माउंटेन्स पे स्नो है वो मेल्ट हो रहा है, और मेल्ट होने की वजह से दैट इज कमिंग डाउन इन द फॉर्म ऑफ वाटर एंड द रिवर्स आर overflowing. Sometimes it happens even the breezes which controls the river, which controls the flow of the river, water flows above that bridge. So Dickinson talks about the effect of seasonality on the brook, or the different moods of the life. She describes how in March the brook changes. In spring, snow starts to melt. The excessive water makes the river overflow. Excessive water, excessive happiness, and then we forget about everything. We forget about petty things. We forget about spirituality, and we become excited about the happiness. We forget that if winter is there, spring cannot be far away. If day is there, night cannot be far away. But as a human being, we are very forgetful about the hardship, about the happiness. When happiness comes, there is no control on our happiness. So that comparison is done in this poem through the brook in the season of spring, in the season of March, where snow is melting and water is overflowing. The poet uses visual imagery to depict the flow of the river. She also uses imagery in order to depict the hurrying motion of the river. Hurrying motion because water is coming in excess. The snow coming down from the hills raises the water level. As an effect, it goes above the bridge that was used for crossing the river. Means that abundance of something sometimes becomes hindrance. Like this imagery, कि the abundance of water breaks the bridge. That bridge which is made to cross the river, you are not able to cross because it is overflowing with the water. Through this section, the poet described the most fruitful moment of personal life. In life, in its prime, is a river of spring. The excessive amount of water is a metaphor of creativity and the success. And here we have to remember one thing, that when we are on the peak, we should know the value of abundance and value of that time. We should not disconnect ourselves from others. Like in a spring season, that bridge is shown to disconnect, or the even bridge. The purpose of the bridge was to help people to cross, but the even bridge is overflowed with the water. So the message from this, you have to have control on the emotions, because there is a brook which controls, which helps, which gives us inspiration. It seems that the poet is talking about her own life. She might be describing the time when she produced her most excellent works. Means, I told you the lyric is a personal description of subjective life. So here, if we can relate this third stanza to Emily Dickinson's life, again we will see that maybe she is sharing her own experience where she wrote maximum work. But there has to be ups and downs in the life. And now comes the last quatrain or last stanza of this poem. And it says, and later, in August it may be, when the meadows parching lie, beware lest the brook of life some burning noon go dry. So we saw the beauty of the brook with the word and the flowers. We saw the inspiration from the brook. We saw the abundance of, or the overflow of that brook, and now the end. And the end is always painful, or the end gives the message that everything, whatever physical we have, it has to dry down here only. So it is about the August month, the autumn, where the nature is in the dry mode. So when the meadows parching lie, meadow means the green lawns or garden which used to be green few months back, now they are the parching lie. Parching means burnt alive. Beware lest this brook of life some burning noon go dry. And there is a message for the reader that you have to be aware, beware. Beware means caution, alert, chetavni, कि this brook may dry in some afternoon. Happiness, sadness, ups and down. In contrast of the spring scene, autumn brings a new kind of change to the brook. It is both depressing and alarming. Dickinson uses the impact of this season in order to describe life as a whole. And this is the message of the poem, that life, how it starts, how it beautifies, how it takes you up, and what is the end of each and every life. In the month of August, or in the end, the meadow near the brook lie past due to the dryness and the heat. The image hints at the last phase or person's life when her creativity or energy start dying or start fading. So like if we see about the physical beauty, about the career, about the profession, about even the nature, everything has got a start, then peak and the end. Same way this poem gives us the message that the brook, the nature, the happiness around that brook and the seasons, it was on its peak, but now after reaching to peaks, it is the downhill or downward journey as it happens in everybody's personal life. Dickinson advises writers to take cognizance of the change occurring in our life's brook. That we should not all of a sudden get shocked and surprised. Why? What is happening? We should be prepared for this. Like it is told, always hope for the best. Always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Because when we are ready to face the worst, we don't find ourselves in a distress. Rather, we feel ourselves motivated to fight any situation. So it is the message of Dickinson to be ready, because ups and downs are the part of life. It is up to us how to deal with the changes in our life. In the last line, she uses a metaphor, burning noon. It is a reference to the hardship of our life. Anybody who's alive has to face the hardship sooner or later. So it's better to be ready for that hardship. Better is to prepare our mind and to prepare our consciousness about this hardship, which can be faced by anybody at any time. There are moments in our lives when we lose hope. As a result, that brook dries up. But that's not the way of life. We have to keep the hope alive. In order to keep it alive, we should never lose hope. So being attentive to change happening in our life, mind or soul, or taking care of it, is one of the learning that readers can take from this poem. Now, we have finished the poem. This poem had 16 lines. This poem had many hidden meanings in this small structure where 4 quatrains were there. It has a message for life. Now let's see which points we should remember, or what should we carry with us after completing this poem. So, Have You Got a Brook in Your Little Heart is one of the best poem of Emily Dickinson. Why best poem? Because it has maturity, it has lesson of life, it has lyrical charm, it has beauty of a ballad also, it has natural beauty as well as spirituality. This poem is a small poem and it has 16 lines, mean 4 quatrains, and every quarter has 4 lines each. It has ballad rhyme scheme, though we can say that it is a lyric, but it has quality of a ballad. This brook, this word brook means a very deep meaning in this poem. That can be taken as a consciousness, that can be taken as a soul, that can be taken as a mind, or that can be taken as a spirit to live this life. It is a symbol of life and it is a reference to the soul. So here we have completed all the points. Now let's see what we have to do as an assignment after this session. So first you have to find out the meaning of this word brook from dictionary. When you take the words from the dictionary, after that you write the symbolic meaning of this word brook, how it is used in this poem. And second question is theme of the poem. Theme of this poem, have you got a brook in your little heart? These are the two things you have to do. Brook, the meaning from the dictionary, then symbolic meaning, and the word brook used in this poem, and second is the theme of the poem. So here we finish our first section, that was poetry section. In poetry section we have covered different forms of poem. We have covered many good poems and we have come to an end of poetry section. In next session we will start our prose section. We will see various types of prose writing such as essay, fiction and short story, and let me assure you, like we have enjoyed our poetry section, we are going to learn a lot in our prose section. Thank you.